Hello, this is Gerald Johan van Was. In this video I will take another Chinese word, compare it to the foundations that I have described of the letters and sounds, how they show really meanings as positions in time and space that can be recognized also in Chinese script and Chinese words. And this one is interesting to analyze. You can learn to realize what it means from the characters themselves, which also have an origin of a balance in time. And the words, of course, also show you the same kind of balance or directions in which you have to think to understand the word. Let's analyze this and start going from here with this intention. So I have the word lǐmiàn, or inside. It's actually two words. It's the lǐ, which is a separate word which already means inside, but it's of course more an emphasis of this is really about the, I already said, the appearance of what seems to be inside. So that's more an emphasis so that you really know what I'm talking about. Lǐ is a bit short, and then you're absolutely sure if you hear it, okay, this is the context. I have a context. Now I know where to go to with my context. And I will explain the character, I will explain the letters, combinations, and all of that. I'll start with the letter combination of the first one. The first one is lǐ, and it's interesting to show you the square with the four parts is also like an orientation on the clock, let's say, on the clock, the year clock, which used to be the most important thing to measure everything everywhere in history until we had the clock. Yeah, because then we knew how to behave in nature, in the seasons, and we could count on of course the harvest and other things. We deal with nature within this context, and that's the most important context, is the clock. And all the letters or scripts, characters, I can't say letters, the characters, the Chinese script characters have this context. So lǐ is has a meaning, but I will tell you first the let's say the universal meanings of some of the letters. I will show you the difference between where you can recognize the letter M. M is actually the total picture and the extension of it. The total picture also, or you could say, of the finalized product. In this case it could be the year, the millennium it could be. This is the M. This is the M, the big picture. The N are the separate parts, so it's like the four seasons. These are the separate. The L in that case is the growing towards something. So it's the transition periods actually, which goes from one part to another. And you could recognize these things a bit already in that character, which has two parts. One part is the totality, which says, okay, I start from the total picture, and then I pick out in the seasonal changes, I pick out what I put in, the E, that grows from there. And then you can recognize it already somewhat in the character, but I will first analyze it a bit better with the letters. So you have already the position of M, the position of N, and the position of L, but there are of course in the context of time, so I have to make the context of time. These are more the product of how I place them as a placement in a place but they are always in the context of time, so I have to go for the 4 seasons too. So where will I add the L? The L has it starts from the total picture on top, goes to the point of where the results come out. When is that? It's mostly after winter. You collect, or after harvest as well, you collect what you have, you see what you have, and see what you can use for next year. That's the point where you have that middle line, where you use it, you say, okay, I go immediately to the results. It's always there when it goes to the results. E is an insertion. The insertions can be anywhere during the year. I just put them there to make an example where I can put it in. I can put it in all the 4 seasons, of course, but I have to go to the results, so I have to follow the rules of the 4 seasons, so they turn around. So when I have the results out of winter, I have, of course, to follow the time frame, and the time frame tells me I have to take them out with me after the winter period, or the period when I don't have it. Here it comes to appear, and that is where the E comes in here. So that is the focus of the letters. So the focus of the letters is, okay, something is inserted because it appears for the first time as li. That's what you already know. So we build up further. It is a position in letters already that we understand, with simply only the first part, li. But I will show you how li looks like in forms when I simply would change the positions of the letters and change them into a form. They always have the same kind of tendency of forming a certain form, so I will do that with li. First as li. As li, I have it here. Something is formed, something is taking shape, that's the L, and something is fits in, or is put inside, or is fits in is actually more the thing. So I have a growing form and inside. That's li. That's the form of li, a structure that I can use to build up my reasonings. But it's li, so it even continues, and this E comes in, and it is a good opportunity to explain the differences in tone variations. In this case, it's important, the tone variations. There are 4 kinds of tones for every vowel in the Chinese script, and the 3rd tone is E. It goes down and goes up again. It shows, until now, I see that it mostly refers to a dependency. So in that way I describe it there, and that can be so you go from bigger frame to a smaller frame, mostly that kind of effect, or you go from a bigger context to a smaller context, to an applied context, that kind of thing, that kind of association. I noticed that happens when you have these tones. It jumps out immediately. No, it's a bit more modest, and the focus goes slightly inward and goes to a small place of focus. So like this. So I have this focus, I have this, the li grows, something grows out, something comes in, and I go to my focus goes to what is there, what is in. And then I'm almost already at the foundations of what this inside means. But I go further to the second part, this second part is is also a character, and this character means something which should be the more an emphasis on what kind of context do I have. I have lǐ, okay, but what kind of lǐ? There are many kinds of lǐ. It is just some kind of direction, but we have to be sure what's the context. The context is described in the second part of the word, and it means something like the appearance or the face side, the side which is on the outside. It's the face side of what it is, the appearance, I could say. And I will analyze that a little bit. So when you have two characters, so the first character, as always, I will put in the time frame, and the second character will be in the third category. I have three categories: the spatial frame, the time frame, the context. It will show you the context. So what is actually the character describing? If you look up earlier versions of this character, like in the oral script, or in the oral bone script, or in the seals that you can still find it, they show mostly the origin where it comes from. Now, the origin of the oracle script is it's tried to be. It's used actually as a prediction, and the prediction are actually trying to find out the circumstances in which something is growing. And so you always have to see that as what kind of focus do I see? If you have a lot of lines, you try to recognize a pattern. What is the pattern here? The patterns are actually quite simple in this case. You see an eye with something around it. Now, this is not about an eye or something. It's more like, no, there is a centered area in three parts, actually. So there is a confined area in which there is something in it. And now, as an extra, there's also something outside it. So that's the kind of focus that is describing what, like the scratches on the bone, on a fractured bone by heat, is showing at a certain point in time, in a time frame also. So how they read it, how they read the oracle bones, or they even read it somewhere else. So you can read it, actually, the oracle script, you can learn to read it, and it can be translated to, this is about that there is a centered area inside another frame, or with a frame outside. In this case, we don't know yet what's the order, what will be the order, but there will be a couple of frames, as you can see there. Different, for instance, would it be with just one frame inside? That would be compared to a center point, and it will be compared to the sun. As you can see it underneath in a spatial frame, it will show yourself as a sun. It's a circle with a middle. That's a center point. That's my center point of attention. If this center point, the center is also getting my attention, it will become an eye. And that's symbolically, but it's also in the geometrical sense. How it is actually the same kind of thinking as with letters. The letters are formed like from sun to eye. It is like my frame of attention notices something extra. So I have within that center, I notice something extra. So I don't only have a center. Now I see an eye. This is symbolic. But that's the way of thinking how letters are built up, and in complexity, that you notice a small difference, and then another small difference, and more distinctions come out, and all of these specific distinctions turned into letters or meaningful meaningful foundations to build up words in this case as well. That's the frame. In a time frame, it will look a little bit different. I already explained to you the sun. We would symbolically, as a sun center, show it as a circle with a point. In the time frame, it's always in the square. It is presented as a square, the total square, with a line in the middle. It's not a perfect transition, but it is actually in a time frame. No, we are measuring everything within there with a centered time. That's actually how you have to associate it. That's at least how I associate it, and it makes sense, and it keeps on making sense. Or I should change anything, but I don't have to. The eye then has not just... So that means that we have two parts. You have the sky and the earth, let's say. For the sun, in the time frame, you have the sky up, and the heavens up, and the earth beneath. In the eye, you have three sections. So that's the way how to see. So anything that has these three sections then could also be associated with an eye. Not that because an eye accidentally, in a way, accidentally fits into it, but because underneath it is a geometrical form. So that's the origin of that middle frame there, of that character there. The only thing what still can be you can wonder about is like, what's the order of looking at it? Like also in the script, there is a certain order to write things. There's also a certain order in the oracle bone how to read it. How do you have to read it? Is this a thing inside or is this something outside? We know we have to make a word that should present inside, but actually this second word, lǐmiàn, is not about the inside. There is something inside, yes, but there's something extra to it, and that is at the outside. So we look at it and see it from the outside. It's like a mask, and that's what it represents. It's features, something that you can translate actually as the appearance. So the context of my inside idea of lǐ is actually the appearance of it. And it doesn't mean that it's outside, but you see it from the outside towards the inside. That's how you have to conclude it. I'm not going to the conclusion yet. So just to show you that frame with the three parts more clearly, that you know which order you have to have, in which order to look at, I put my circle or double circle a little bit more to the side, so that you see that what comes first is the frame. So you have the frame, first meet the frame, and then see what's inside. And that is how the things will present themselves, how they will appear, how they will look like. You look at them from the outside. So that's what we already have. So let's also compare this to the what I call the sound-informed presentation of the word lǐmiàn. In form. When I have before I showed you the M, which completely fitted in the square. The M actually is, from the physical sense, something that is trying to become more. So that's why it fits into the full square, but it tries to become more. It becomes to become the maximum. So in forms, it will become the maximized form. That's the first letter. The E, something is put in, so or taken in, or is looking in to what to what is there in the sound. It can be a thing or it can be a thing in time. But I take it out with the N. I take it out again. So that's what I see. So what I see inside will be taken out, or that is how it will appear to me, how it will appear to me in the end. That's how it will look like. All these underlying structural references which exist all point still to the same direction. Was it then really necessary, because for me everything is already clear with all these associations, was it already necessary to have the big frame first and then go to the details, as if it, again, in extra certainty with all these unconscious associations coming towards you, the form, the letters and so on, was it really necessary to say also like, oh yeah, there's the bigger context and goes to a more specific result? If you look at the underneath picture again, it shows you again indeed the big context. We go to the inside, which means in our general frame we see the mask of the outside, but it's about what is shining through from the inside of what is really inside. That's in the bigger frame. It even gives an extra confirmation where our mind is going to head to really understand, from the context of the letters, from the context of the sounds, from the context of the characters, what this really is about. This is about an insight and its appearance. Nothing more than that, with a lot of references that all puts your mind to it, that you really understand it. And in this case, in my approach, how you could also remember it and understand it maybe better. At least that's what I do, thanks to this. I hope you do as well, or that it could help you, or just remember what you can use. And then you could still wonder, why do you need two characters to say something? You have here, from the full context, we get the inside results that appear. Isn't it more easy to just say in, then we know already where it is? We don't even do that in English. We say, and that's where I will make the comparison. I said that every character in Chinese needs the context of timings, how we have to see it in time. So we have here the full context to the inside results which appear. That's how we see that in a time. What is inside, it needs to appear at a certain point in time, and that's what has been described. We do the same thing in English, but we have our foundations, as I always said, in space. So what do we say? We don't say in appear or in or there, suddenly it is. No, we say inside. We describe where it is at that side. It is, so we move also just slightly with this E in the background in time. We have to go to somewhere else, but it's at the side there somewhere, so it's not immediately in our spatial view, in our immediate view. No, it's at the edges. That's why the S is there, and it describes it differently, but it also describes in, and then at the edges there, you have to move D, you have to move there, and when you do so, you will find it. There you will find the inside in space. And that's what makes the difference between English and Chinese. It's actually the same foundation in the way of thinking of what I have in the background of the sound orientations, how they are built up. I already said in this video, they are exactly the same, only the references are different in time or in space, but actually we're speaking the same language as a foundation of how we orientate ourselves upon the world and pick out the things that we recognize and go towards unconsciously still for the most part, but what I described here is all the references that are used, and we take them all together and try to remember them as quick as possible, but they are there to recognize. You recognize from it what you want, you recognize from it what you need, but the more you recognize, the more fluently all the connections which are lying underneath are also made. Really, that's the word behind the word. The word behind the word is the living language that connects, interconnects everything. And that's what I sometimes will talk about as well. And I hope you enjoyed this one as well. There are some books with the preparations. The scripts are in the application of the word. The foundation of the sounding form is in the development of the word, or you have them both in just the one book. There are some Facebook pages which you can check. There's a website to check, and I have to check out. Thanks again for watching. Bye bye.